I'm originally from the Philippines, but I live in Dubai. During my first year especially, the drinking culture was something I expected. It's something that like I was fully aware of going in. But I kind of felt like I had to prove to people that I could keep up, especially feeling as if I was behind because of the way I grew up. I didn't like who I was because I felt like I was kind of trying to fit into this very fast-paced culture that I could not keep up with. British culture, which I felt like I had to assimilate to make friends really fast. And then there was kind of the type of person that I could tell other people expected me to be, where I was wondering, should I continue to kind of play into their expectations, borderline stereotypes, or do I stick to who I was right when I moved? But then you also think as an international student, especially from my background coming from somewhere that was quite strict, was that even really the person I was? Kind of, it was hard to navigate when it was that I was kind of trying to fit into an image, or was I actually finding myself? Compounded together, it all culminates into a feeling of you having to prove something.
I was born in Japan. I lived there till I was 7. So we moved back to North Wales, which is where I'm originally from. And then we moved to Saudi Arabia for a few years. And then we moved to Thailand for a few years. So, right, I'm going to go to uni, I'm going to be an actor. That was always what I was going to do. And then I did it, finished, and then I was like, shit, I've just, given up my life abroad. You're just busy moving forward all the time. You don't think about it. We moved houses regularly. We'd probably stay in the same house. Maybe the longest was 4 years. I moved schools a couple times in the same countries. Change was just like second nature. I never really thought about keeping the cultures with me. Now I worry that I'm getting older, I'm getting further away from my upbringing. I worry that I'll lose those cultures. I looked like everyone else. I didn't speak like them. I had an American accent when I left Japan. And I heard people making racist jokes about Japanese people. And I was like, whoa, I'm not Japanese. But I was offended because I was like, that's my home, and I'm protective. Been told that I was wrapped up in cotton wool, which is bollocks. Because you're not. I think living in one place your whole life, you're wrapped up in cotton wool. Being moved around all the time, you are the furthest away from being wrapped up in cotton wool because you're seeing everything firsthand. You're not watching it on the news. It's people telling you what your life has been like, people telling you what you are. Or you've lived here, here, here. You must be very rich. You must have lived in luxury. If you've lived outside Britain, you've not lived in the real world, because that's just offensive to everyone living in every other country in the world, saying that their world isn't real. Everyone's world is real.
So when you move into a different cultures, you get to know the rules over there. You're kind of that process of going into another culture, learning that culture over and over again, and being very flexible with yourself and other people, and not kind of putting these different cultures, heritage and host culture, in two boxes, but kind of switching between them very flexibly. But I can imagine that it does have a very different effect for men and for women, especially if you look at gender roles. If you look at a very traditional culture, men have a certain way of what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing things, and whereas women are much more restricted and limited to that. So when women who are TCIs might grow up in a culture where they're experiencing so many different cultures, they tend to be more liberal in their mindset compared to their monocultural counterparts. And that can be a very large conflict because they've grown up with liberties and experienced new things, and then they come back and they see that, oh, actually, I could do it over there. I could do it a few years ago, but not anymore. And at university, that would be the same. They would see either that, okay, yeah, for sure, I don't want to do that. I didn't do that at all. With the alcohol is a very poignant thing. They might either then be segregated and then, feel shame, that reinforcement of that feeling that you don't fit in, which you've kind of felt for a whole big chunk of your life where there's more pressure to do so, or it can go in the very opposite direction, that you're like, really, okay, let me try this, let me see, everybody's doing it, and you might go into kind of paths of more risky kind of behaviors, of where you're not really sure where to set boundaries, and you kind of go in a different kind of path because you've not done that before, you've not experienced that before. The identity development is different. Monocultural kids often find their identity at more like a younger age, around 15, 16, they more or less know who they are. Whereas for third culture kids, because of the switching between so many different rules and norms, it can take up to about 25 that they're still developing their identities. It takes a lot longer to actually see, okay, this is who I am, and to also see maybe that, okay, I don't need to pick one culture, I don't need to pick two cultures, I can navigate between different ones in different situations with different people.
I was thinking, oh, if I'm not traveling anymore, if I'm not moving in different countries, am I still me? Goodbyes are just too easy for me because I always had to say goodbyes. I think that's more of a negative impact. I'll either cut myself off before the goodbye or after I don't really have the goodbye. I don't get upset, I just, move on. And as a best friend in drama school, and I was really worried because we got on so well, we clicked so well. I was worried it was another goodbye again. In the end, it wasn't really goodbye because a couple of my friends from drama school live in the same county as me, whereas my other best friends from around the world live in different continents.
TCI experience either a lot of moving, or if you're in a school of, for example, international school, you have children that are there and might move again in half a year or in a year, where you might form very intimate and strong bonds and friendships that can dissolve almost overnight. That can either lead to TCIs growing up and having a very hard time of finding very good and healthy friendships as adults, or that can mean that it's much easier to kind of process when somebody's moving away, and then maintaining friendships and bonds to people that are in very different parts of the world. The spectrum is a really great word for that. It's not just how relationships are formed, but also what are friends. Like if you're as a monocultural person, you might meet someone in primary school, and that is your best friend until high school or for the rest of your life. Whereas for a TCI, friends can be it has a very broad kind of definition. It could be someone that you've been so close to, call every day, text every day, Skype every day, or it can be someone that you see once a year, have a video call once a year, and you're talking as if you met a few weeks ago. Just the definition of what is a close person to you is very different.
Actually being able to spend Mother's Day and Father's Day with your parents if they're still alive, and seeing your grandparents on the weekend. I didn't get to say goodbye to any of my grandparents because they all died while I was abroad. To do with coronavirus, people were struggling here to go down the road to the hospital to say goodbye. My worry was my dad's got a heart condition. He had a heart attack a few years ago. I couldn't even fly out because of COVID. You have to live through that to understand how much harder it is losing someone, how much harder it is going through something life or death, but then being on the other side of the world, you can't imagine how much more painful it can be, but you just do develop this right. I think as a third culture kid, you just right, that's how it is, we're just going to deal with it. It's hard. It makes me feel overwhelmed, I think, because wherever you go, it's not full. You don't feel full. Being with my parents like how we used to be, people in uni would just go home on the weekend, whereas me, I couldn't do that. So when I am back with my parents, it's different because I've had to be a lot more independent. Well, my best friend lives in Japan. Last time I saw her was 3 years ago. I miss memories with her. I'm never ever gonna spend maybe a few days with her. There's so many things that you look back and you're like, I'm never gonna see that again. I think that's the main thing for third culture kids. When you move around a lot, you can't go back often, so you've just got to hang on to memories a lot more. And I think that's why I have so many memories on my walls in my house, just so the memories are always present and I don't forget them.